Hi, this is Mackenzie Balance, and I am recording my responses for How Do You Keep It Separate, the video reflection for IPE 576. For the first question, you are asked to attend a meeting of your organization's Healthcare Ethics Committee in which an ethical conflict that the organization is facing will be discussed. How will you prepare yourself for the meeting? Well, first off, an ethics committee is a body responsible for ensuring that medical experimentation and human subject research are carried out within an ethical manner in accordance with any laws. In the healthcare facility, they are used to debate, study, and report any ethical issues that pertain to patient care, comprising of people from all disciplinary teams, considering doctors, nurses, social workers, administrators, etc. With that being said, I think a way to prepare myself would be definitely depending on the position that I had in the ethical committee. So for example, if I was a nurse and let's say I was the one at subject on hand with the issue that pertained to the patient care, I would make sure that I have all of my facts straight. I know exactly where I was and what I was doing at each time of the situation that happened, and that I had everything written down in a recorded manner. That way I was able to, one, put any defense about myself, and again, release any honest and necessary information that is needed to go along with the issue at hand. If I was just a doctor that was on the hand, based off the reading, it kind of seemed like the doctors don't really pertain that much to the ethics code. They just kind of like let it blow. So, but personally, if I was the physician at hand, I would kind of go along with it the same way the nurses does, with the aspect of making sure I had everything that I had done or completed was written down, charted, etc. That way I had any full research and evidence there to back up what had happened. If I was an administrator, I think I would come from it with a very broad manner, and let's say whatever the issue was, I did as much research possible. That way I was able to know any information regarding the situation at hand, and that I was fully prepared for the manner, whether it's procedure, treatment, anything. Make sure that I had any information I was confused about, I researched beforehand. That way any questions that were brought up, I could maybe entail another feedback or give it to another point of view. I think by conducting as much research as possible beforehand, it really gives that objective of being fully prepared, and that way, like I said, any questions that arise, I am fully faced to answer them and discuss them with the rest of my disciplinary team. Sorry, I'm like kind of reading the question again. I think another thing to really consider when preparing myself for the meeting is that whether we are in the wrong or we are not, that it comes in a manner of professionalism and nobody were to get defensive or angry or anything, and everything is seen as kind of a neutral field. That way everything discussed, no one gets offended, and everyone is able to take it into a manner that is fully understandable, because at the end of the day, whether they were in the right or in the wrong, having that neutral ground and making sure that it is led in a neutral manner disregards any arguments that are going to pertain in the future. When looking at the other ethical principles and any negative implications they may have, the first one that came up to me was autonomy, with the precedence or concept of self-rule and the patient having their own decision-making. I think a negative implication on this can be that maybe not as like broad as paternalism, but more defined as them making the wrong decision that the physician may not agree with. Let's say they're not going to continue care, or they're going to ask for a course of treatment that the physician doesn't seem fit. And then you can also take that into the physician manner as them prescribing a treatment that the patient may necessarily not need, but let's say the patient or the physician is partially funded into that facility, then they could suggest MRI screenings, treatment plans that facility offers. That way the physician is getting more money and more of an income based off that patient's treatment plan. Another ethical principle that may become a what's the word? Have a negative implication, maybe honesty, and that's just the demand from the clinicians who don't even attempt a treatment process, or they provide partial or biased information, trying to trick the patient into giving consent for treatments that they might not even want. And also, I think justice, because it kind of refers to the clinician's fairness in using limited healthcare resources, or like I said, using that treatment process that may be partially funded into in order to allow them to get a little bit more money, or just, again, without even like the patient knowing, coercing them into a treatment plan that they may not even agree with. As for the third question, I think that overall the first statement really doesn't raise any ethical issues at mind, but that's just because they went out of their way to go and ask for assistance from a consultant to determine which package they thought was best, because they were having difficulty deciding. And I think that is 100% okay. It's never wrong to get a second opinion, in my opinion. And also, it just kind of, if you're questioning it, it doesn't help to have that second voice saying, yes, this is the right decision. As for the second example, I think that one kind of raised the most ethical issues for me, but that's just because they know that they only get a certain amount of budget each. What is it? They get a budget concealing its true within each purchase authority amount. And so by splitting it up, they're exceeding that amount by tricking the company, thinking, oh, we've stayed in this amount. And really they aren't. It's exceeding the budget. It's then throwing off the budget for the rest of the other facilities and departments that then have to decrease their budgets because of such of an increase in the budgets by this person. And for the last one, I think it raised a little bit of ethical issue, but not as much compared to the second one, because I think that if they really were interested in a certain software package and the vendor was offering to fly them out, and it was something that would be totally useful to the facility, I think it's okay. But the part that raised my ethical issues was whenever the rationale was it was a brutal winter and they could use a short vacation. Whenever you look at it from that way, it's definitely an issue. But whenever you're going to the mindset of, okay, I think I need to go check out this software just to make sure it's what I'm thinking it is and seeing how it fully functions. And also, I think that doesn't hurt, because then whenever if you do end up purchasing the software and you are then trying to teach everyone how it works and everything, then you have firsthand experience. You're not trying to learn it from reading a book or just kind of going off what the vendor has explained to you in the past. Last question. Clinicians' ethical obligations typically focus on promoting the best interests of their individual patients. Healthcare managers' obligations, however, often focus on the best interests of the patient population served by the organization. How could these different perspectives affect discussions of ethical conflicts? So starting off with the clinician point of view, starting with the growth of physician ownership of outpatient diagnostic or treatment centers and specialty hospitals to refer patients, these cause an increase in expensive in-office accelerated equipment such as MRIs, X-rays, CTs, etc. This due to physician ownership of these facilities such as specialty hospitals. And the ethical concern comes whenever they get a portion of the money made from these facilities because they're partially owned. This can take away from the number of patients who go to other practices and then determine the capacities of those facilities. This can also raise ethical issues with then the pay for performance, because these hospitals that aren't getting the same amount, the higher amount of patients, are going to then receive lower scores, therefore lower money. It also can go into looking at the patient's best interest of not even care, but insurance, because their insurance coverage may be applied somewhere else, but because the physician or clinician has a financial stake into the facility they are recommending, they are going to continue to recommend these facilities because they will continue to earn a profit, as well as keep increasing those numbers. So like I said, like the pay for performance, for example, pay for performance will continue to increase because they're getting the capacity met to increase those numbers and ratings. When looking at the health administrator's role within ethics, it comes to concern with agency assessments. Agency assessments reveal an increasingly large marginal situation in terms of patient and the community's well-being, which can't be a unique situation in delivering of community-based services. This may mean that someone may express concern for the patient's safety when they return to home, but the facility may not continue the services because she sees herself as a patient advocate, even though that may not be in the patient's best interest. The main issues concerning patient population with administrators is that the adequacy of patient rights with regards to whether they are continuing to provide services that are at the patient's best interest of not, even though they are not based off the group they are representing. For example, a facility in a rural community is going to offer a fewer amount of services compared to those in a city aspect. That is because their population base is way smaller, so they don't need as many services. The rural facility, though, may continue to offer services that may not be necessary for a patient's treatment, but continue them because it increases the fees and an income that that specific facility may need.